Scunthorpe United had lost 4-0 at home to Exeter City this afternoon.
Love it.
Open wide for some soccer!
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the far more festive studio. I'm trying to work out cameras so it doesn't make me look massive. But welcome along. We are joined today by Dr. Wheatman himself, Henry Barber, who is come away as a part-time supporter, has finally come in and shown himself. He will come on to that in a short while. But he's graced ourselves with his presence, as has Scott Woodthorpe. He's joined us from across Pennines, where there are actual train services and motorways. He's going to tell us what it's like to live in the life of Riley. And joining us from the South Coast, the one man who tries to up me by being more southern than I am, Tom is well from. Hopefully, that's not a hotel waiting room. Everything all right your end, Tom?
Yeah, fine, thanks.
Good. And I hope you don't mind a bit of a peek behind the curtain. We are in my living room for once, rather than my specially assigned Grimsby Town room, which the people at the French Embassy saw this week and were much delighted as they were trying to guess what football team it was. It took about an hour and a half. But things that also took about an hour and a half, which were just as awkward and just as painful, and I'm not talking about the Formula One. I'm talking about our game against Chesterfield. I was lucky, one of the lucky souls that didn't go to our eighth, seventh defeat, whatever it was. But I'm told all is not lost. Henry, you were there. You finally bothered to go. How was it?
I guess there's a few sort of areas that I'd want to cover. I think just on the game itself, 1-0 defeat. Ultimately, they've had one clear-cut chance, and their 200 grand strikers buried it. It was a classic. We've made one defensive error, given away a soft free kick at the end of the game in a dangerous area. We've not cleared the ball after the first ball in, and he's just buried it. It was a good finish. It is what it is. I think on our side, we had two clear-cut chances. Harry Clifton missed his header in the first half, and Crooks, just after their goal, missed his sitter from about 6 yards out. And that's really been the difference in the game. I thought we cancelled out the top of the league. I thought they looked a decent side. Like Tashimanga up front looked really good. I think he looked dangerous. He's the kind of player a bit like Podge or Bogle when we went up last time. You know, against the smaller or weaker side, he's probably going to bag loads. But I thought playing a back three,
managed to get one.
Yeah, I mean, but playing the back three, other than the set piece, playing the back three against him worked really well. I thought Longe King and Waterfall and Pearson did a really good job against their front line. And I think going into it, when we didn't have McAtee, we didn't have Souza, we didn't have Hunt, we were kind of limited in terms of who we had available. So no complaints in terms of how we set up with the three at the back, which I think the one criticism you'd say in the first half is the wing backs didn't get forward at all. So we were a bit pinned back, but they didn't create anything. I thought the back line did a really good job. And the one time they did get through, Crocombe made a good save just before half time. I think the midfield three, there's only those three midfielders available, really. I thought Clifton provided a lot of energy and has probably been my player of the season so far. I think having Fox and Coke together in midfield, I think showed its limitations in terms of the lack of mobility. And also, I think it limited us towards the end of the game because I think Hurst probably wasn't comfortable taking a midfielder off without replacing one of them because they were lacking energy. They were getting tired. I don't think he wanted to go without three in the middle. And not having a replacement midfielder to offer a change in shape kind of limited us. And then up front, I thought Taylor was fairly quiet. He was playing just behind Bell. I thought Bell grew into the game. Bit quiet in the first half, but put himself about in the second half. I think they had two giant centre halves marking him, and they did a really good job stopping him for the most part. But in the second half, I thought he worked really hard and put himself about well. So after about 70 minutes, it was pretty even, really, against top of the table. Neither team had, other than the Harry Clifton header, really created anything noteworthy. They hit the bar from a bit of a fluky cross. And then I think a lot of the criticism yesterday has come from not making any subs. And you look at the bench, I think we had Revan, John Lewis, and then two wingers. We had Scannell and Maguire-Drew, and I can't remember who the fifth substitute was. But I think in terms of attacking subs, he took Taylor off and brought John Lewis on, which, I mean, you can berate John Lewis. I think that's showing his age a bit. But for 20 minutes,
hang on, we can't gloss over this. If the sort of even a hint of a criticism of John Lewis comes from Henry's lips,
yeah, I know, but
the rest of the world has got pitchforks.
He's your number two striker, and I think that shows the kind of difference in terms of where our squads are at, like in terms of their attacking options and who they brought on as substitutes, and that's really all we had available. And like I said, I think the other options were, if you were to change players early, you're looking at changing shape and bringing wingers on. And, Scannell's not really played in a year. Maguire-Drew's come on once. And so after 70 minutes, I think I probably would have agreed with first. I don't think I'd have changed it. I thought we were a slightly better side. We weren't creating much. I think that's fair to say, but equally, neither were they. I thought it was a fairly even game. And I think to bring the wingers on, you'd have to take off one of the central midfielders. And when your central midfielders are Fox and Coke, I think it would have overly exposed them not having three in there, to be honest. And then, we made one defensive mistake after 85 minutes, gave a soft free kick away, and they punished it. So overall, I thought we were well worth a point. I think it just shows the state of the squad that we don't have our best three attacking players, and we're very limited without them, to be honest. And that's kind of how I viewed the match itself yesterday.
You feeling okay though? It sounds more positive than. I mean, we'll get on to the outcry online, but better than you thought. When was your last game that you went to? It's not a part-time dig.
Aldershot. It was far better than Aldershot. It was a much better performance.
I mean, that's a low bar, but yeah.
Yeah. So, and the last home game before that I went to was the Southend game, and I thought it was probably a better performance than the Southend performance where we got an early goal and won it, to be honest. And like their left side, they had Mills and someone else, and they looked threatening. I thought Fetty did a good job of covering it, and I thought Crooks had, I can't remember the number 12's name, but he was a real big lad, and like they posed threats. And I thought for the most part, we did a good job snuffing it out, really. And I think it just shows the lack of depth in the squad that we lose McAtee, we lose Sousa, and what we've got on the bench is Sean Scannell, who's not played in a year, and Maguire-Drew, and Lenny, who's 34 and can just about do 20 minutes.
James Howes, who looks far too young to be throwing messages into a podcast, says, first half, we were naive and let them gift us defensive throws on our left side. That the Chesterfield 12 won the ball back from just about every time. It did sound like on the radio, from what I was listening to, most of the game was throw-ins, and it sounded like the referee should have taken everyone aside and shown them how to do a throw-in at times. There
was a lot of petty things about, they were sportsmanlike in terms of there'd be a throw-in, they'd try and gain 10, 15 yards from it, and that went on for 90 minutes, and the ref did nothing about it. But that was sort of a minor thing, really. They were quite a physical side, and they got the ball forward quickly, I think is the polite way of putting it. But for the most part, I thought we coped pretty well with it, to be honest. And I thought Waterfall, Pearson, and Longe King as the back three did a really good job for the most part. And it's just one mistake that's let them down.
I really like Long King. Scott, what were your thoughts coming from the game? Much to offer? I did add to that. That was a very
not really. Henry's pretty much summed it up perfectly. But so my last game was the Dover game. So I was very intrigued to see what had gone wrong since the 6-0 win. And I actually really enjoyed it yesterday, I have to say. I really enjoyed the game. And it should have finished as a draw, in my opinion. Crooks missed an absolute sitter at the end, didn't he, Henry? I think it came off his shin, and it was an open goal.
Yeah, I don't know how that doesn't hit the target from 6 yards out, to be honest. We had two clear-cut chances, and we didn't take either of them. So,
yeah,
it wasn't like we created absolutely nothing. We had two real good chances.
Yeah, and Clifton should have buried his head. He probably had. I think JT said he had too much time to think about it. But no, I really enjoyed it. It was a cracking atmosphere, I have to say, as well. Felt like a proper, Football League game. 6,500 there. Good, good away following in the Osmond. Plenty of police presence and everything. And I really enjoyed the day as a whole. Obviously, there was a few gripes, things that still annoy me at Blundell Park. Is the taking the knee and people booing in the main stand. Still going on. We're in mid-December and it's still going on.
They didn't take the knee against Dagenham, which was.
Did they not?
No.
Do you know what? Just on that, I feel like a few games ago when we were going really well, they were taking the knee and it was just applause. And I just feel like it might be really cynical, but I feel
just
like
something to boo.
But I just feel like I don't know. Like we're on a bad run of form. There's like the detractors are back. And I don't know, there's just like a slight negativity in the air at times at Blundell Park. And I feel like the people who want to boo feel almost emboldened to boo again. Do you know what I mean?
I'm just trying to think.
I feel like with all the positivity and the great start we had, it almost got snuffed out by it was just force of will. And now there's, we're not going as we were. I don't know, like maybe the people just feel like they can get away with it again. But it's... Yeah.
Sorry, Alex.
That's all right. Mine is useless. I'm just trying to think on my moral spectrum, how much of a shit town team does it need to be where I throw all my ethical presence out of the window just to go, oh, Linwood's kneeling, so it must be wrong. Fuck you.
I was going to say is the Venn diagram of people booing for taking the knee and people who want Paul Hurst out. I don't know. Is that a crossover for that as well? I don't know. Just saying, put it out there.
Yeah, in the middle, it's complete bell end.
We just lost 3 people. That's all right. But was it? You enjoyed yourself, Scott? I mean,
I did. I had a great day. I went to Ocean before for a jumbo haddock, and then
the football ruined it.
And good news or bad news, I'm doing the Stockport game next Saturday, the massive FA Trophy game.
I'll tell you something that shows what even Tonda thinks of that. Sent Scott. that's not even a Matt Dean job.
No, I genuinely am looking forward to it because I appreciate doing these games, but yeah, it's the game that no one really wants to go to. It'd be really interesting to see how many people go to it, for the attendance, but we'll see.
We had quite a we had quite a heated discussion last week about whether being at the game or not at the game affects your way that you view or emotionally partake in the match. Does your viewing of the game change with you being on comms, Scott? It's quite a unique position. Do you come away from games less devastated, more elated, depending on the result when you're commentating compared to spectating?
I think I think it's without being wanky about it, like you're in the zone, like you're doing more.
That is quite wanky.
Yeah, I know. I regret saying it. And you don't really take the emotion out of it, really. So more, and if Town win spectacularly well, I try not to go over the top. and if they lose heavily, I don't get too disheartened about it. It's somewhere in the middle. So yeah, it's a strange one really, where you take yourself out of it and you're not a fan. Because if I was commentating as a fan, as I am, I'd be swearing and all sorts, and obviously you can't do that on the radio.
Are you trying to ask us to do that shitty fan zone thing that Sky Sports did about 10 years ago? Take it.
Please, yeah, don't bring that back. It was dreadful, wasn't it? So yeah, it is a strange one. Next week, I'm seeing it as a bit of a free hit. The game against Stockport next Saturday, it's a free hit because I don't think anyone's expecting us to win. And I don't know what kind of team Paul Hurst will put out anyway as well.
I mean, this is a good link. The only man who will care about the game against Stockport has yet to say a word. Tom, the FA Trophy is coming up. How did you feel about yesterday? I don't know if you went or not. It'd be a hell of a schlep if you did. Not that would affect your viewpoint on the game. What were your thoughts? With what you listened to?
Yeah, obviously disappointed that we didn't win. I think whilst I was disappointed, I wasn't particularly surprised. It sounded like what Henry said, basically, that it was a really close game and one chance was probably going to win it, or the team that tucked away their clear-cut chance was going to win it, and Chesterfield did that. The throwing thing annoyed me because it's not just in the foul throw thing. It's not just in that game where it happens. It happens all the time at all levels of football, seemingly now. And from my point of view, I think that's probably the most basic rule and easiest rule to enforce in the whole game. It's a foul throw or it's not a foul throw. And people go, oh, it's not important, but it is, isn't it? Because if you do a foul throw on level with your 18-yard box, you've just handed over a great opportunity for a team to launch a set piece into the box.
I mean, look, if you don't follow the rules that are in place, chaos can reign. Anyone who's watching the Formula One would agree. And you could incorrectly crown the wrong person world champion, couldn't you?
Yeah, exactly.
Not bitter at all, Alex.
Fuck them with your orange shirts on. You wouldn't have us wandering around. That's, by the way, with the Dutch fans, that's proper wanky. That's our equivalent of wandering around in fucking full arm, like Camelot Crusader shit. Because that's about fucking William Orange fucking taking over half of the Caribbean and alike, just, being a twat. So fuck you lot, you racist cunts. Anyway, I'm done. Not that I'm bitter. I'm still not over Schumacher knocking Hill out in '94. That lives rent free in my head. More than Paul Joyce or Ross Joyce, whatever the fuck that prick's name is. I'm fine. Tom, sorry.
No.
Fuck's sake.
Get it off your chest, mate. And yeah,
imagine what it would have been like if I was there.
I think the lineup wasn't particularly surprising. We've obviously got a few players out. McAtee being obviously a huge miss for us, especially in a game like that. So it's I don't really have any qualms with how we set up. I know a lot of people were saying it lacks ambition and all this lot, but I think if you set up and say, "Oh, let's go 4-3-3 or 3-4-3 against a team that's basically free scoring, arguably going into the game the form team in the league, you're going to set yourself up for giving them tactically, no doubt, more opportunities." I think just because you set up in a formation that's 5-3-2 doesn't mean you're setting up to just draw. I think or to not lose. I think you're just setting yourself up to try and give yourselves, with the players you have available at that moment, the best chance of winning the game. So I think that's quite a harsh criticism. And like Henry said, this who was it? The back post Crooks, who missed the chance, and and Clifton missing chances. In those games, you have to take those chances, and obviously we didn't do that. So, yeah, disappointing, but not particularly surprised. And I don't think losing to top of the league warrants the implosion that ensued online, which I thought was quite entertaining personally. But...
So can I ask a controversial question? We always talk about Hurst having that this baggage that he's had being our previous manager can affect him. People are waiting for him to be kicked out and are looking for the opportunity to boo him out and Hurst out. Grimsby fan for life. I haven't put your message up, but he's put it out like this. The question I've got for you is, because of the previous baggage, is Hurst actually getting quite an easy ride? Now, I would not necessarily say the relegation was anything to do with him, but he still carries it. He still had half the season where he was the manager, and we've now lost this amount of games. If it was any other manager, would the situation be different? Would people be calling for their heads?
Can I go?
Yeah, go ahead.
I feel like the people who want Hurst out are also the types of people who wanted Buckley out back in the day. Do you know what I mean?
The board.
And also, a lot of them are the type of people who got so butthurt about the fact that he cupped his ears at him. And yeah, that was a mistake on his part, and I'm sure he's grown from it. But I just feel like they're so insecure about that whole situation that they're sort of gagging for him to fail, to be honest. And I think you look at where we were 12 months ago, and we were doing podcasts 12 months ago, Alex, sort of when we were doing bottles of wine, talking about Fenty and Capicania and all that.
You ruined my agenda. I get it sent to your WhatsApp group. Linking that later.
Yeah, I know. We'll talk about that later. But it's true. Like you've got a view where Hurst and the team are at in that context. You just have to. And it's difficult because we weren't at the games at the time, and it feels a lifetime ago. And it was a lifetime ago.
You're obviously not, because you're a bit of a part-timer.
I know. Apparently so. Apparently having a season ticket and a 5-hour round trip for each game makes me part-timer, but there you go. But if that's the argument of the numpties, if that's the argument of the numpties who think that Hurst gets his substitutions wrong, then that tells me all that I need to know about those types of people, to be honest. So I think the people who are so fickle about it don't really grasp the concept of where we're at, to be perfectly honest. And they can hide behind Hurst not making substitutions or whatever, but I think that's naive. I think you got to look at the squad and who was on the bench. At 70 minutes at 0-0, people weren't going, "Oh, we need Sean Scannell on." They were only whinging about that after 85, once we went 1-0 down from a dodgy free kick.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, Sean Scannell. I mean, did he come on? I was getting
he did for 10 minutes. He didn't touch the fucking ball, and that's my point. And the same. Why
break a habit of a lifetime? Why would he affect the town game?
But the same people that were then clamouring for him were saying, "Oh, we should have set up more attacking. I'd rather see us lose 3-0 than lose 1-0 and see us go for it." Absolute bollocks. If we'd have lost 3-0, they'd have lost their tops. That's just absolute bollocks on their part. I'm sorry, it is.
You're right. Scott, do you think he gets an easy ride?
Well, I was gonna put it out there. Sorry, Alex. I was gonna put it out there. If the previous, hypothetically speaking, if the previous regime was still in charge, would they have pressed the button by now?
6 games, wasn't it? He said. You're only six games. He would have sacked Sir Alex Ferguson if he'd have lost 6 games in a row. Fuck your Champions League. Fuck your Premier League. You're out. You've lost to Boreham Wood 6 times. Get to fuck.
But yeah, no, I suppose I don't really know, to be honest, Alex, which is no use. But yeah, is he? Yes, he has got credit in the bank, hasn't he, Paul?
Is he spoiled?
Oh, come on.
You've got to interview him next week.
Well, yeah, there is that as well. Yeah, I do have to speak to the man. I'm quite happy. I'm quite happy with him at the minute. I've got to say, I'm happy with him at the helm. All right, it's not a great run at the minute, but just the people that want him out, they were so vocal about it as well. Deary me, who do they want? Who do they want?
Poch is free, isn't he? See?
I think the thing is, though, with that type of person who wants to change quickly, it doesn't matter who they want, because after 6 games, they'll want the same again, because the squad's not in a state where a manager will magically change things. And it's the same as when Jolly came in. Like, Jolly made the point, it's going to take 3 or 4 transfer windows, and judge me after that. And I said on Twitter after the game, we've made
With his 6-month rolling contract.
we've made 27 plus signings in 2021. Like, the core's not there, and it's going to take 2 or 3 more transfer windows before we get to the point where the last period of success we had was when we had Paul Hurst, but also we had a squad where all we had to do was add 5 or 6 players a summer. We're nowhere near that position yet.
And it's also worth taking into consideration. Look, people were delighted when Shaw Pearson came back. They absolutely loved it. Captain of Wrexham, Moneybags Wrexham, they wanted to keep him. He hasn't been the player I think that Hurst wanted, hence the game time. Coke as well. People were overjoyed that Coke had signed for another season. I don't think he's the player that Hurst expected him to be this season. I think he's that leader. I've said it far too many times, so apologies for just regurgitating the same shit. He was this season's Disley. He was going to be our leader in the middle of the park, and he just isn't up to it. His legs have gone. There is that point where you can, fall off a cliff, and he may well have done that. Though people are saying that he was all right a bit yesterday, but I don't know. I think there are these things on the top of it. Ryan Sears deciding to go for a little bit of a joyride at 4 o'clock in the morning. That's another thing. There's quite a few bits that don't go your way, and I think sometimes it's very hard to tell a football fan to just be patient and just, wait. But I mean, after Dagenham and Redbridge, as long as the performance is there, I don't care. But if you play shit like you did at Aldershot and Dagenham, I'm fucking coming for you. And it's the players. It's not Hurst. I think it's the players. Tom, you had your hand up about an hour ago. What were you going to say?
Well, there's a few things I want to say now. I think that for me personally, I think it's very, given all of the circumstances that we were in last season, it's very hard to blame. I know there are people out there that do. I think it's very hard to blame Hurst for getting relegated last season, because he basically renewed the squad in January, and then that was almost entirely like a new squad of players that were in and around the first team. So they needed, some of them needed a month to even get up to speed, because they'd not been playing, like Lenny and Giles Coke. So really, we gave ourselves about 2.5 months to actually save our season. So from my point of view, I'm judging him on this season, and this season he's won 50% of his games, and he's got the nucleus of a squad that he wants going forward. I would argue that Coke and Pearson were not re-signed to be playing week in, week out. I think they were re-signed to be senior voices in the dressing room, as much as players who are going to give us 90 minutes every week. I think we saw last season with Coke, and I think all of us knew deep down with Pearson's age as well, that they probably weren't going to be those kinds of players. But I think what you would expect them to bring is, if you are looking to maybe shore up a game with 20 minutes to go, you could bring one of those two on. Like, Coke's really good at just sort of keeping the ball moving when you're in possession. And Pearson is generally pretty solid at the back. So I think you have to judge Paul Hurst on this season. And I think at the start of the season, given where we've come from, and I have been playing this tune for weeks now about perspective. We were rock bottom this time last year. So I think playoffs was probably a reasonable target at the beginning of the season, and we're around about that mark at the minute.
There's a proper little productive thing in the background. Can any of you guys see the comments that are coming in? I don't know if you...
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Okay. Right. Henry, do you want to take a few? So Stephen McDade. So this is Stevens. Do you want to read them out and I'll flick through them?
Right. So Stephen McDade, how can anyone call for Hurst to be out? Short memories. Remember what happened the last time he left. Shouldn't even be in the conversation. Massive overreaction. John High, why drop Towler, our best player this season? I think that's an interesting one. I think Hurst said that he had to drop someone. And I think you look at the back three and I thought they had a good game, to be honest. But I think there's question marks. I think, we signed 15 odd players this summer, a lot on loans, a lot till January. How many are going to come back? I think, is Towler one of those that might disappear in January?
Also, why was Sears on the bench?
Oh, he's a drinky.
So
drinky, driving.
So Jack Brighton said Afete has been really poor recently too, and I don't agree with that yesterday. I thought first half he didn't get forward very well. I thought him and Crooks both were sat back and didn't push forward. But second half, I thought he did really well. He pushed forward. He got sort of behind their fullbacks and really sort of cracked on. I thought he had a good game myself. I mean, that's my opinion. Jack has a different opinion, but I thought the whole back five and Crocombe were fine yesterday, to be honest.
I think one thing that I before I go to Tom, I was going to say, we had more time to prepare for this season than anybody else in this league. And I think we can attribute our blistering start a bit to that. We gelled more. We were more up to match fitness than the other teams were. And now they're just coming up to our level, which I think is one of the reasons why we belted out of the gates at 900 miles an hour. And now everybody's caught us up. Not to mention with the problems we've got. That's just my thought. James Howe said, Bell flicked the ball onto an advancing midfielder yesterday. Coke had a 3-yard head start and still lost the race to the ball. I mean, we've all had that moment, James, in life. If that was Clifton or Fox, I assume if it was Clifton.
I would say Fox looked like his legs were in sand at times, to be honest. Looked like it took him 5 steps to sort of get them moving.
Can I say something controversial?
I think yesterday showed the lack of mobility of both Fox and Coke, to be honest. And that's probably why he put them in a 3 to try and hide that.
My controversial opinion is if it was Clifton, he'd have probably shinned it out for a throw, but that's me being controversial. He's a great engine. No one's driving though. Tom, what were you going to say?
I think one of our main problems this season has been our left-hand side defensively. And I had a look back through all the highlights of the goals we've conceded this afternoon. And of the 21 goals we've conceded, 10 of them have been down our left side. And then 3 more on top of that have been from set plays on the left-hand side, such as throw-ins or corners, which I would accept that you can't necessarily say it's totally down to the left side, because when you set up for defensively for a set piece, it's not necessarily the left back, for example, who's at the near post. And I when I was watching the Solihull highlights, Solihull seemed to have most of their good play down our left-hand side, and a lot of people during this run have been suggesting that there's not been like an inquest and we don't seem to be improving, blah, blah, blah. And I doubt that Paul Hurst and Doig are just sitting on the hands going, oh, well, we can't do anything. We'll just wait for it to get better naturally. I think they're working on it all the time. But I do find it interesting that we seem to be particularly weak on the left because the games that I've seen, I think Crooks and Clifton have actually played quite well. But for whatever reason, that combination defensively does seem to be our weak point. I don't know whether it's because Clifton isn't naturally a left-sided player, and so he tucks in a bit more when we're either in or out of possession. I don't know, or whether it's just because Crooks just seems to be sort of a defender as opposed to a modern left back who does lots of overlapping runs, and so causes the other team more problems defensively, which means they're more likely to be on the front foot when they're coming forward. But you know, I think it's interesting, and I'd be interested to know if anybody else thinks that a problem. Just for comparison, we've conceded 7 goals from set pieces as well. And I mean, 3 of us were at the Aldershot game. The Aldershot game, the set pieces were a big problem in that game. And yesterday we conceded from a set piece again. So there's something not quite right there. I don't know what it is, whether it's like maybe Mac has been dropped for the last couple of games, whether the defence aren't totally confident in him, or whether it's a lack of communication. But it is interesting that those 2 areas are certainly where we're conceding most of our goals.
There's a little bit of a fight going on in the YouTube comments at the moment, so I'm going to put them up in a second. Scott, what were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say I was impressed with Crocombe. Yesterday, I thought he was really commanding in goal. Good kicker as well. And that's because that's the first time I've seen him play. And yeah, I was impressed with him. And obviously, you know, Macca's Macca, and we all love him and everything. But it's sad to see him. I was sat in the main stand, and you know, and he was just sat in front of the press box. And it's not often I've seen him just sat there for a game. But Crocombe, I have to say, I have to give him credit. He's really commanding. He's quite tall as well, and he came for crosses really well. I don't think we can attribute the goal to him, really. Henry, what are you going to say?
I fully agree with you. I thought he came for crosses a lot better than McEwen has in recent weeks. I think one of the interesting things that I found, and Alex, it would have driven you up the wall yesterday, was we had this goal kick that we did consistently throughout, where we'd kick it to the right touchline towards Afete. Afete would miss the header every single time. It would bounce, and then Ryan Taylor was behind him, and he'd miss the header, and it'd go out for a throw. And that must have happened a dozen times.
I would not have been allowed to have been at that game.
You would have been like, it was a classic Monkhouse goal kick routine, but with Afete and Taylor, and they missed it all the time. And it wasn't just on, like, Crocombe was being told to do that clearly, and some of the times he kicked it straight out, but a lot of the times he got the ball bang on the money, and we just missed it. But that was quite a frustrating part yesterday. That wound me up at times.
Jack Brighton,
just on the short corners, I think it shows when McAtee and Hunt aren't there, because Fox's deliveries were atrocious. I think that's why they did the short corners, because we couldn't get it past the first man anyway.
That doesn't sound like a Paul Hurst team. Yeah. Has anybody got anything else to say? Tom, you said you wanted to say. I'm going to behind the curtain. I want to say something about our left side, and people basically suggesting we are massive at this level. Go ahead, have at it.
Well, I like a lot of the comments I saw yesterday after the game were people bemoaning the fact that we didn't sign Tishmanga, or however you say his name. Excuse the pronunciation.
Right.
You know, he cost them £250,000. I don't know where people think we're going to pull £250,000 to sign a player from. And just in the conference this season, yes, we're one of the bigger teams. That goes without saying. But I don't think we're like the biggest team. Like, we certainly don't get the biggest gates. We're in the top 6, but we don't get the biggest gates. We're not even in the top 2 for biggest gates. And I certainly don't think we have bigger budgets than Wrexham, Notts County, Chesterfield, or Stockport, judging by the players that they've signed. I think their locations probably help. I mentioned after the Torquay game, Torquay have got quite a small squad, and it made me wonder at the time whether Torquay have sacrificed a couple of players so that they can perhaps sign or what they thought would be better quality and or have more overnight stays to try and increase their chances of preparing better for away games. And I think location-wise, that affects our budget that people seem to forget. Like, a lot of players who play for Town live in digs which are paid for by the club. Now that is going to eat into your budget. And there was comments going, "Oh, we didn't want to spend the extra money. We could have had Tishmanga, blah blah blah." I really don't think it's as cut and dry as someone saying, we're just going to get the extra money from here somewhere. Again, I think it always comes back to there is a bigger picture. Someone just joked there, we could have crowdfunded the sprinklers. I think all of those little things that are going on in the background that don't get talked about as much are building the foundations for a better football club going forward. And we need to try and remember that when we're losing our shit after 5 pints on a Saturday afternoon.
I think that's probably in relation to Chesterfield crowdfunding for their pitch covers, isn't it? I mean, 250 grand. Like, I'll be honest, if our new owners came in and had spent £250,000 on a striker, I would be absolutely terrified about the way they're going to run this club. That is 5 Omar Bogles. We bought Omar Bogle for £50,000. I'm trying to look through it. Like, you think Lee Ashcroft was bought for £330,000 for us. That's our largest transfer fee we ever spent on anybody. And you want to spend a little under that on a player that you don't know if it's going to work and could well crock themselves in the next couple of weeks. I mean, granted, it's working for Chesterfield, but shit or bust.
Yeah, and it's not their first year down here. And also, I think they've got a complete squad, whereas we've been building our squad from scrap. We're still paying players off from Holloway's era. And we can't spend all of our budget for a transfer window on one player because we've got 5 or 6 holes that we still need to fill. And I think if you look at our squad in total and you look at Chesterfield's team, how many of our players would walk into Chesterfield's side? And I don't think you could name one, to be perfectly honest with you. I think you could make an argument about Sousa or McAtee. But even then, I don't know if they'd be regular contributors to Chesterfield. Whereas, you look at them and their left back, their right back would probably walk into our team. Teshumanga, or however you spell his name, would walk into our team. There's 3 or 4 players there who are obviously of higher quality than what we have.
It's also worth saying how fucked up that bid for Chesterfield has done to the rest of the league. How many clubs will now turn around and go, well, Chesterfield just spent $250,000 on a striker. Why aren't you? You're the same sort of size club.
And you look at Wrexham, how much have they spent on Mullen?
$9,000 a week or something, isn't it?
It's something stupid. And it's one thing to be like, okay, yeah, we've signed 2 or 3 quality players and we've splashed out on them. But when you've got 12 players that you need to replace or improve, then it's not something that you can do straight away. It's going to take transfer windows before we can just add 1 or 2 quality pieces.
Tom, you had a question?
No, it was more just a comment about the other clubs spending a lot of money and how that makes it difficult for the league. I was listening to the Price of Football podcast recently, and Kieran Maguire on there said that one reason clubs don't publish their accounts, they sort of delay the publishing of what is so that they can control what information other clubs have about their finances, especially when it's coming up to a transfer window. So it is interesting how that has probably ballooned the market in the conference. But I don't think, having living in Wales at the time when Mullin was signed, that was obviously big news. I think the more accurate estimation of his wages is sort of 4 to 5 grand, which was what Akindi was allegedly on at Lincoln when he was there. I think £9,000 in the conference is a bit of a stretch.
Sorry, £250,000.
Yeah,
but here we are. So I'm going to go with 9,000. If you don't like it, I'll fight you in the car park. What was the next one? I guess that was really it on that one. I mean, anything else to add on that? I mean, we should really talk today. Marks a special anniversary. Today was the day that the shit hit the proverbial fan, as our old friend, fraudster in chief, Alex Capicania, was found to be waltzing into Blundell Park with no regard for the fact that I couldn't get in, and all hell let loose. Henry, you're waiting with bated breath.
And this is also the anniversary of when the podcast became semi-relevant, Alex, and more than 2 people started listening to it.
I don't like the pressure of it now having more than 2 people listening. But I mean, it was incredible that was 12 months ago, and to think of what happened within the next 2 weeks of that. It was quite sensational, and off the pitch anyway, we've gone a hell of a long way from where we were. And I think there are 2 discussions to be had: where we are off the pitch and where we are on it. Off the pitch, we've moved leaps and bounds forward. Off the pitch, it's just going to take a little bit longer.
I think on the pitch, though, like, we started 2021 as the worst team in the Football League. Like, we weren't rock bottom, but we were really the worst team.
Southend dislike that.
But we were at the start of 2021, you know, we'd lost 3-1 to them a couple of weeks before at the end of 2020. True. We got fucking spanked by them on that Tuesday night. And, you know, we finished that season bottom, but I don't think we finished the worst team in the league, to be honest. The way
we were a mid-table team by then, weren't we?
And I think, you know, there's always talk about how the top half of the conference would be comfortable in League Two. And to be honest, I think this Grimsby team would spank the Grimsby team of 12 months ago. I think on the pitch, we have improved. Like, we've not improved as much as we want. You know, we're not running away at the top of the table.
Which team is Scannell going in? Neither. He'd be unfit, I guess. But
say that again, Alex. Sorry.
Which one would Scannell go into?
I'm sorry, you're breaking up.
We're breaking up.
Yeah, my internet's dodgy.
It don't matter. It wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth it. Move on. Move on.
But yeah, in summary, I think we have improved basically on the pitch. We've not improved as much as people want. Like, we're not championship in 3 years, like Philip Davis said we have. But like, we've improved this year. I don't think there's any doubt about that in my mind.
I can't believe all that was a year ago, that Alex May stuff. And then it makes me think of the deadline that Fenty gave Jason and Andrew. Was it Christmas Eve? Was it? Oh, and all those
midnight Christmas Eve.
Yeah, and I just think, oh my God, it just sends a shiver up my spine just remembering about all that. Because then I was doing the Morecambe game with Lloyd on the Boxing Day. And the lead up to that was it was incredible. And to think where we've come from since then, we've come on leaps and bounds, and it is incredible, really, to think, because it does not seem that long ago, really, at all. That you know, it was an absolute shambles around that time. So yeah, that's amazing. I didn't realise.
It's just mad, and it's hard to think it is a year, and you just stand there going, was that really happening? It was like, you look, Doncaster Rovers in '98 for me was the nadir of football. Like, if you're that crazy, the fact that we could go slightly toe to toe with them that season on like shithousery and crackpotness was just incredible. And it's amazing that in the next within just a few weeks, Hurst was in. I mean, granted, we got relegated still, but you know, Hurst was in, new owners came in, training ground looks nice, moving forward. People listen to what we have to say, which is probably not a good thing. It's a bit mad. Tom, what have you got to think of it? Like, to think that was a year ago, that, you know, the Telegraph were poised, waiting. They knew he was going to be there. They had a little photographer outside ready to go. Like, he was like, you know, I don't know, Reese Witherspoon's going into Wetherspoons.
Well, I think it was a great bit of journalism from the Telegraph. They deserve a bit of credit for that, because that basically sort of set the wheels in motion for Fenty's reign to come down. And I think everybody would agree that, well, everyone would agree off the field we're in a better position. Evidently, after yesterday, I think everybody would agree that on the field we're in a better position. But I would say we are. We at least look like a team that, well, we're in a position in the league where we could at least get into the playoffs, which the squad that we had when Paul Hurst took over was probably in danger of doing what Southend are doing and sort of scrapping around at the bottom of the table.
Do you think it takes a lot to get to that? We never finished in the bottom half, did we, of this league? But do you think it takes a lot to?
No,
to
but
be
we
down
we
there?
have in our past, not into the conference, fortunately, but we have had back-to-back relegations in us. And I think Southend are just a very extreme version of that. You know, they went League Two from League One and then straight down again, and now they're in trouble again. Like, they are sort of the worst case scenario for that. But we have had experience of that when we dropped out the Championship. It just took us longer to get down to the conference.
I mean, Stockport are an example of how that can happen. Stockport fell as far as us, and they ended up in the Conference North, and they've obviously turned it around with the help of a wealthy backer.
York City as well, Tom.
Yeah, York. I mean, York, I would argue, never really sort of, Southend, Stockport, they both, like us, were in, whatever you want to call it, the Championship Division 1. That's, relatively speaking, quite a long way to fall.
Gainsborough.
20 years, Gainsborough. You're reaching back there.
Been in the second division. I'm ticking it. Bradford Park Avenue.
Yeah. But I can't remember what I was going to say now. It probably wasn't that interesting. I think there should be some criticism of the players. That's what I was going to say. The players need to get together and, have a team meeting and say, look, we're letting the staff down. We need to pull ourselves together and get over this incident, which has clearly affected the squad, in my opinion. What? Am I not allowed to say that for legal reasons?
No, you are. No, sorry.
You're waving at me. No, stop.
I think Henry is getting ready because there's some sort of sports event going on.
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna have to leave you, gents. But my final thoughts, I think, were
TH, mate.
just like, I know people are frustrated, and the people who do want Hurst out, there's a lot of, calling people happy clappers or whatever for saying everything's fine. And, I drove home yesterday in the rain, and after walking back to the car, absolutely so. Like, I wasn't happy about it. Like, not happy about losing the game yesterday, but equally, I don't think the solution is wholesale changes. Like, I think before the season started, we said there's going to be up and downs, and we're in a down patch, but that doesn't mean that you don't stick with it for a bit. And I think the start of the season has showed that our very best 11 playing its very best is very competitive in this division. And no, Tom, losing 1-0 to the top of the league isn't that bad. We deserved the point yesterday. Like, we played pretty well in my mind. So, it's the fact that we're saying, stick with it, and there's going to be up and downs, and, it might not be perfect for a year or two, doesn't mean that we should just bin it, because there's no magic solution in football. And in my mind, looking at the whole picture, in 2021, we've improved on and off the pitch, and we're on the right track. So that's kind of where it's like, yeah, it was disappointing yesterday walking away after a late defeat. Like, we're all disappointed. But that's not a reason to spit your dummy out about it. You just got to stick with it sometimes, and it will pay off.
I think Alan Pouton's the magical solution, but there we go.
Anyway, bolt up, go Chargers. Ciao.
I don't know what you said.
Yeah,
what's that? I don't
what
know.
is it? This is snooker Scottish Open final. Is it that?
That's the one. Yeah,
I'm
the
watching
one.
that.
Bases are loaded and stuff.
Do you think, is this FA Trophy game come at a good time then, or a bad time? Obviously, I think Hurst will mix it up with the team.
Hang on, I've got to say so. I've got to remove Tom for this one so he doesn't hear it. no FA Trophy game is a good game or comes at a good time. Tom, welcome back. Tom, has the FA Trophy game come at the right time? 1936 would have been better, in my opinion, but there we go.
Yeah, I think it's come at a great time. It's a free
out
hit,
of it.
isn't it? It's a free hit to try and get a win under our belts without any pressure. I think most people, this doesn't include me, but I think most people will be perfectly happy if we get knocked out because they, for some reason, see it as an obstruction to our romp towards the title. Personally, I think, why do people not want to win a trophy? After yesterday, people are banging on about how like we're not winning and we should be challenging and all this lot. When we get back into the Football League, we're not going to win the EFL trophy because most of the fans don't want us to win it because we're boycotting it. And I think we've seen in the last couple of competitions where that's been run, that's been the club's attitude as well, just get knocked out. We're not going to win the League Cup. We're not going to win the FA Cup. We're probably not going to win the league or the FA Cup ever now. That I think that moment has probably gone. And our chances of winning a championship are very slim. I can't remember off the top of my head how many actual league championships we've won. I think 72, 1900, 1901. Maybe one other, maybe the Midland League, something like that. In our whole history, we've barely won any championships. And the FA Trophy's there. If we get through this round, I think there's only like 32 clubs in the competition. And then the odds half again if we get through to the next round. I'm like thinking, yeah, let's go and win a trophy. Let's have a day out. Let's have something in the trophy cabinet, which has been looking, I mean, I don't count playoff wins as trophy wins. It's a promotion, but it's not a trophy win, is it? Even though you do get a trophy now. But yeah, let's have some silverware. It's fun.
Tom, my analogy is this: we are a drunk man stumbling home at 3 o'clock in the morning. Every game is an obstacle. It's a fallen tree. It's a wheelie bin on its side, and every one of those obstacles slows us down from getting to home, which is League Two, the Football League. If we keep putting games in the way, that's another stumbling block. That's another, bruise on the shin. Bump on the head because we struggle. That's my analogy. We're a drunk man trying to get home.
I would say in response to that was in 97, 98 when we got promoted. We did well we did all right in the FA Cup that season. I think we beat Norwich in the third round, and we did all right in the League Cup as well. We played Leicester, I think, and beat them at home. And we went all the way in the Auto Windscreen Shield. It bred a winning mentality in the squad, which we carried through into the league. And I think you can use the FA Trophy to do that. And if you go deep in the competition, a lot of teams play it like the Football League Trophy. They sort of rotate the squad a bit in the early rounds if they can. And at this moment in time, for us in particular, as I said at the beginning of this monologue, which has no doubt caused many people to turn off, I think it's a good opportunity for us to have a bit of a free hit, get a win under our belts, reignite some confidence in the squad, and then enjoy a good day out at a league rival.
It didn't do us any harm in 2016, did it? We got to the final then. Played Halifax in that forgettable game the week after the playoff final.
I think we all tried to get out of it. That was the problem.
But that was the last game that Town played in the FA Trophy, and it was bloody awful. So it didn't do any harm that season, is what I'm saying. And like Tom just said, neither in 97, 98. I think it's really harsh. It's a really harsh draw. It's a really unlucky draw for Town when you look at all the other teams that are in the competition, but to get Stockport away at Edgeley Park, all right, it's not going to be quite the same atmosphere as the game that was back there end of August, the 0-0 game on the Monday night. In fact, I've absolutely no idea what the attendance will be on Saturday. Absolutely no idea.
It's All I can say, Tom, I'm going to give you a piece of information which is not great. Brian Clough said the most important trophy he ever won for Nottingham Forest was the Texaco Cup because it bred a winning mentality within the team and they understood what it was like to win something. There you go. That's for you. Do you know what? I'm getting quite tired. I don't really know why. Maybe because I've emotionally spent after Mercedes were, trounced by Ross Joyce refereeing a game. Look, we've got Boreham Wood after that, the rearranged game, another tough fixture. Has anybody got any thoughts on that, or are we happy to go through some of the questions that were thrown to us that I kindly begged for on Twitter? And then we can,
Well, just before we move on from the trophy, because James Howes has been putting comments in the thing, he said, "Oh, you get rubbish money from the FA Trophy." James, it's not all about money. Sometimes it's just about the winning and enjoying the win. Let's win a trophy. I want to win a trophy. Why doesn't anybody else want to win a trophy? We're like Arsenal. Let's qualify for the Champions League and win nothing. Admittedly, they've won lots of FA Cups. Crap example. Let's be like a team that qualifies for the Champions League but doesn't actually win anything. When they do all the football annuals, only the teams that win trophies and promotions are in there.
It's mostly about the money though. But yeah, I get what you mean. What was it? What's the next one? Boreham Wood. I can't even begin to garner an opinion on Boreham Wood. It's just another shitty team in the outskirts of London where we'll go, it'll piss down, we'll lose 3-0, and I'll spend 3 hours behind a London bus on the the bypass, the London Ring Road. Sorry, Scott.
Well, it's a home game, Alex.
I know, but it just feels terminable. It feels. I still feel like I'm driving back from Wealdstone. I'll be entirely honest. It's probably giving my demeanour. Stephen McDade, I can feel. I'm glad that you feel my pain. Absolutely. Adam would love Bognor Regis again. I love Bognor Regis. That was a good day out. That good. All I remember was a good throw on the bog roll when we scored. It was great. Perfect. 8 out of 10. Good unfurling. Good distance. Didn't get caught in the netting. Perfectly timed as well. A little bit after the goal. So it just adds a little bit to it. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. There we go. No, Boreham Wood apparently though. Scott may be able to tell us a bit more information, James. Boreham Wood are real shits, and they don't really let us go there and commentate, if I remember rightly.
Don't know about that. The only fact I know about, well, everyone knows this fact probably about Boreham Wood is the town and the football club are spelt differently.
I did not know that. All I know is it's next to EastEnders, didn't we, Tom? We worked this one out. Its closest pub is the Queen Vic.
Yeah, at Elstree.
Look, they're pretty well organised. They're the team that we shouldn't aspire to be Boreham Wood, but they've got it going. They lost Tishmanga last season and they're still absolutely smashing it. And every time I hear their chairman talk, he seems to speak a lot of sense. So, I mean, they're going to be a fucking pain in the arse to play. Let's be entirely honest. Let's go quickly to the tweets that you all kindly sent in to us. Let's have a quick go through. Mike McMahon said, I think we have not lose perspective of where we are comparative to other things and where we've been. This is a rebuild season. Form worrying, but change of manager wasn't the answer. That's a write-off for a season. Richard Hallam has retweeted something from Paul Walker that says, is that the Paul Walker that used to play for us? Anyway, he said...
Yeah, he tweeted earlier this evening about town. Yeah.
No, fine. Some Grimsby fans are absolutely baffling at times. Some of you want the world, and then some things take time. Success isn't born overnight. I watch from a distance and struggle to understand how fickle you can be. Some of the shouts aimed at the new chairman order is unbelievable. Strap yourselves in for the long game or don't get on the bus at all. Some of the opinions I've seen are baffling, uneducated and more damaging than you'll think. Rant over. Actually, to add a touch more, I've been sat in the changing room on match days at BP. I've seen and felt behind the scenes, and all this negativity is felt and affects things. It's damaging. Be positive. Drive for high standards, but understand it's all about the long game. Then Richard Ham, Hurst Brigade are in a minority. Many, same as the first time around, still upset by the Ear Cup. In my opinion, Jason, Andrew, Debbie are many levels above the previous directors in terms of judgment. They will also still have experienced football specialist advisors. They also know what is happening behind the scenes, football-wise, with player mentalities. It'll be a long time before I back my judgment of other fans uninformed by background knowledge, especially over theirs. It's painful at the moment, but you can stick your Hurst out where the sun don't shine. Grimsby XR says, reality check is needed. We've lost 7 out of 8. Only won by more than 1 goal. We're a new team under a new regime. It'll take time. Yes, we've all love a stiff return to the leagues, but so would all other big clubs in the National League. John Kershaw says, I think we should score more goals. No disagreement. Paul Parker says, difficult to find ways to win with so little time on the training ground. I thought we've had quite a bit on top, Paul. As I said earlier, like I don't think any other team has had more time on the training ground given our beginning of the season. But at the moment, I guess it's quite hard. Any good team needs to be hard to beat before anything else. Would add negative Hurst fire, but need to get back to that before anything else. For me, that means Fox and Clifton legs aside from Cokes. Crocombe keeps his place, and Crooks Towler, Pearson and Fetty at the back. I really like Hunt, but would substitute his quality on the ball for some more insurance. Oliver Swaby said, wingers, dangerous, tricky, exciting wingers. We have 2 in the things. Why are they being left out? Same goes for Towler. James Howes. James, you've had enough. I'm skipping yours. Crocombe has done more to prove he deserves a run of games. Commanding performance, one of the very few positives on another wise poor performance. More importantly, that's diving headed from the town fan in the lower Findus over at least 3 seats was worthy of the match of the man of the match award alone. Scott, did you see that? I didn't see it, but sounds like an effort that was. Look, I don't know what else we can really talk. The one thing I want to talk about is the Trust got back a shirt today from the 1939 game. It used to be owned by Jack Hodgson. It was one that he wore in the FA Cup semi-final. That's great. The only thing that I would say, and Hannah Dawson brought it to our attention, was that look, there's a little bit lack of communication really, because one of her friends, the Trust didn't really communicate it out, and one of their friends who's got a bit of cash was trying to buy it, so they ended up with the same intention of giving it back to the club, trying to outbid themselves, which is slightly embarrassing to say the least. But a bit more chatting would get that. Tom, yes, please. I need to take a breath.
Yeah. I think the only thing with that is maybe if they'd announced it, the person who's selling might have rang up a friend and said, "Look, these guys really want this. Go and bid your socks off." So, like, they might have done it to push up the price even more. But it is obviously a great thing. And overall, I think Trust communication has been a lot better. Are you doing the Trust? Like you seem to get an email almost every week from the Trust these days about something or other. And I think that shirt's probably going to end up in that place in the shop in.
Oh, that's getting
Freshly
nicked.
Place.
Right, let's start a didn't Hannah say we started a baby shower game once? Let's start a sweepstake now. How long will that stay in Freshly Place before it gets nicked? I hope I'm wrong.
One interesting thing about that, like we should really promote that, because it is quite interesting. There's going to be, by all accounts, lots of memorabilia that they've set up in a unit it is in Freshney Place, isn't it? In the precinct.
Opposite Eskimo. So go get yourself a milkshake.
And they've got someone's donated a load of old town shirts, which they're putting up. And then there's like programs and other bits of memorabilia to go and look at. And hopefully that will be popular. And maybe be the forerunner to an actual club museum whenever we either leave Blundell Park or fingers crossed renovate Blundell Park into the best ground in the 92. So yeah,
and it's worth going in and looking and volunteering your time. One of the things the Trust do need is volunteers to help out and support and do things and get involved. So please do feel free to, because their hard work is well worth it, and is just another step in the way the club is going in terms of the right direction. We were going to talk about the women's team, but Dale has obviously left his position. I don't know anything more than that. I don't know if anybody's. We've got no replacement yet.
I find it a bit strange, Alex, that there's nothing from the club about that. Imagine if it was Paul Hurst that did that and said I've left, and then the club never released a statement. I don't know. I'm not sure if any questions have been asked to the club about it from any media outlets. I'm not sure, but it just seems to have passed by. It just seems to have passed by without comment. Really, it's bizarre, and I've absolutely no idea. And I thought, the club were improving communication and being more transparent, and they have been. It's been great, but this thing just seems to have been glossed over, really. But yeah, I see that the women's team are still, supposedly having games. So who's taking them? Who's taking their games? Who's manager? I've no idea, to be honest, what's going on there.
I mean, Scannell's not doing much. Maybe he can, pop along and, help out. I mean, he doesn't have to do much running. Not that he did yesterday. But
Danny Rose, he's still kicking around.
No, there's a 5G mast near the women's game. They won't go near it. He'll do one side of the pitch, but he won't do the other. That's the only problem. Look, yeah, it's a shame because ideally, in my head, you'd get a perfect world. You'd get updates every day, like your calendar would update you on. I've got a calendar in my phone that tells me when all the town games are. I'd love it that included women's games, the youth games, and it told me where they were. That if you're an 1878 member or if you're a season ticket member, these games are free to attend, and they'll do their best to put them. Hopefully, if we get a new training ground in town, you'll be able to go along and go and watch these games and get a bit more involved. And I know the youth team games used to be on at Cheapside, like in the morning of a game. Like the idea that the club could put on a quick bus, you pay a couple of quid on it to get from Cheapside to Blundell Park for the match would be great. Communication and a bit more effort. But again, probably the club would need volunteers and support for that. Like if you can get down there, film a game, it'd be great to watch them. It'd be nice to watch some live football from town because we don't get fuck all at the moment unless it's on BT. I don't know. It'd be nice to have a bit more. That's the one thing we can improve, I think. And hopefully the women's players and team are doing really well. But it'd be nice to get some more on because we did it with good intention. Much like the club, it's sort of fallen by the wayside, and that's not great. Tom, you got anything to add on that? You're a proponent of football in other ways. In other ways?
No, only that the game I went to yesterday, the sub keeper got subbed, which I quite enjoyed. Don't see that very often these days because of so many substitutes.
So there was a keeper in goal.
Yeah, he got subbed off, and then the sub keeper got subbed off as well. The first one got an injury to his leg, and the second one, I think it was suspected concussion. That's what it looked like. Okay, so then an outfield player went in goal, which hardly ever happens, and is always exciting because sadly the opposition didn't really test him, so there was no calamity.
That's amateur. That is. I mean, it probably was, but like shoot on sight. Shoot on sight. What is going on? 80 yards out. Have a go. Short corner. Defended a short corner. Lob it long. He's going to tie it at some point, isn't he? Has anyone got any AOB before we wrap it up and go our separate ways? Good. Well, look, if I don't speak to any of you beforehand, have a lovely Christmas.
You too, Alex.
Yeah, Max Verstappen will never be world champion this year. Not in my heart. But yeah, thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. We shall see you next Sunday. That's not Christmas Day or anything, is it? Good. And I hope we provided some distraction from Boris Johnson bullshitting on live TV. But Tom, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Scott, enjoy Stockport.
Will do.
Someone has to, aside from Tom. Good. Right. See you all later. Bye.
Bye.
See ya.
Open wide for some soccer!